Hi, and welcome to the Thrive Alcohol-Free podcast. I'm Dupe Witherick, alcohol-free well-being and transformational coach, and the best-selling author of A Cocktail of Clarity, How to Ditch Drinking, Embody a Joyful New Identity, and Thrive Alcohol-Free. This podcast will show you that being alcohol-free is not what the traditional narrative says. And even though alcohol is so ingrained in our society that it is okay to give yourself permission to stop drinking if you want to. And you do not have to wait until you hit rock bottom. It is certainly not boring, and I believe ditching drinking is just the start to living an extraordinary life. By getting rid of this one thing, it allows the doors to open to endless possibilities and opportunities. Each week, we will have guests on who are at various stages of the alcohol-free journey, from those who are curious to those who have been alcohol-free for years. We will also have experts on talking about different topics relating to alcohol and beyond. Through these conversations, you will discover what it means to thrive alcohol-free. Enjoy. Hi, and welcome to the latest episode of the Thrive Alcohol-Free podcast. I'm so pleased that you're here, and I do hope you've had the best week. I am so excited about the retreat. It feels like it's just coming up on us quite soon. So the Finding Freedom retreat in Bali, I'm really excited for the women that are joining. There are still some spots available, so if it's something you're interested in, then do get in touch. I'll put the details below. But I was reflecting about my journey to becoming alcohol-free, and you may know my story, but 5 years ago, actually 5 years ago today, I was coming down the mountain. But 5 years ago, I climbed Mount Kilimanjaro, and I think that was the turning point for me, having the space and the time to go on such an epic journey. And you were walking a lot of the day, potentially in silence. There were obviously, I did it with a group of people, but there were times, especially I remember on the Wednesday, I woke up just feeling like everything was going wrong. I think I spilt water all over my bag. I woke up in a bit of a funky mood, and this was about we then summited on the Thursday, so I think maybe it was all just getting to me a little bit. But I remember just walking through what looked like a desert plain for hours to get towards base camp, and it was one of those times where I really remember I put my headphones in and just thought, right, I'm just going to be in my own space. I'm going to reflect. I'm going to just be in my own thoughts and listen to music and get myself out of this state. And actually, by the time I'd been walking a couple of hours, I felt so much better. But sometimes we do need that space to reflect, that space to really take that time to understand what's going on and notice things. And I'm so grateful for the experience, because I remember I took loads of photos, I learned Swahili, I was speaking to all the guides and porters, I was trying to keep people in the group chippy and happy. And that morning, I remember one of the main guides saying to me, gosh, we can't have that. Where's your smile gone? You've got to get your smile back. And it seemed to have become my role to help everyone keep going. But I loved seeing the contrast of nature. I remember, as I said, 5 years ago, we were coming down the mountain, and we started off, when we went up and summited, we started at midnight, and it should have taken 6 hours. It took 8 hours to get to the top. And that was because it was blizzards. The weather was really bad, to the point that our UK guide said he'd done it. This was his 11th time. And he was surprised that we didn't ask to go back, because he had never seen the conditions so bad. So we'd apparently done really well to get up there. But we got there, and I remember just thinking, now we've got to come down. And you've got so much adrenaline getting up there. And then I remember getting home and looking down this huge mountain and thinking, how am I ever going to have the energy to do that? Because I just lost all my energy. And anyway, long story short, I eventually got back to base camp and it was all fine. But you do muster this strength inside you, this power when you're in situations that are outside of your comfort zone, when you're in situations that aren't quite what you know. You realize you have it inside you and you can do anything that you want to do and that you put your mind to. And coming back down, going through from snow and blizzard environment all the way as you go down the mountain, it changes. And we ended up in a rainforest and there were monkeys everywhere. And it was an incredible experience. I highly recommend it if you get the opportunity to do it. But while I was on that mountain, I was thinking there was more. I remember realizing the world is so vast and there are so many opportunities for people. And just because you're doing what you're doing now doesn't mean that's what you've got to do forever. And I had this passion ignite in me that I hadn't really felt, being able to do something and accomplish something that just was for me and that was something so outside of my comfort zone. But then I also felt we did it for charity, we did it for a children's charity, and we were raising money for single mums and to build houses and also helping children get sponsored. So that was a real great cause, and I got to visit one of the projects before and meet a family and went to their home. And it was so humbling just seeing how they lived, but how content they were. And then on top of it, they gave us gifts, which was just incredible. So it really changed my perspective. But I remember thinking there's more, there's something else I need to be doing. And 5 years ago, I had no idea what that was. And when I look back, I got back to the hotel and I feel quite sad because the first thing I wanted to do was have a glass of champagne to celebrate. Well, I hadn't drunk anything for 6 days. We've been on the mountain for 6 days. I hadn't even thought about it. But that was the first thing I wanted to do when we got back, which is quite sad, really, in hindsight, because I'd done this epic thing with a group of amazing people. And why was it that I felt I needed to drink to celebrate and potentially dull what was an amazing achievement? But fast forward, we left Tanzania, went over to Kenya to fly home. I remember we're actually on the way seeing giraffes on the road, which was just incredible. But we got back and the world changed. And so a week later, I was working from home. A week after that, I think we were in official lockdown and everything shut down. And so I never really got to explore what that more was. But I remember sending all my photos to people and someone turning around to me and saying, "Oh, I'm so glad you took those photos because when I was on the mountain, I literally didn't see any of the things you've shared with us. I had my head down, I was looking at the feet of the guide in front of me, and that is all I did. It was getting one foot in front of the other. I didn't enjoy it as much as you obviously did because I just didn't even see half I took photos of like the butterflies and the caterpillars and then whatever foliage was around and then just the space and the mountain and other things. And I felt quite sad, but it's our model of reality. We can all choose what we see and what we don't see. And we experience things. My experience of something, whatever it is potentially going to be very different to your experience. And that's because of the way we see the world and the way we are. But we can change that as well. So I got back and not knowing what was going on, we just all sunk ourselves into work and our daughter was at home. And so there was the whole homeschooling thing and children being at home. And so, but along the way, I just kept having these niggles that there was more, there was something on the mountain that I'd left or that had stirred in me that I needed to explore further. So fast forward to October time, I then made the decision to take a 21-day break at the beginning of November from alcohol, and the rest is history, really. But I am so grateful for that experience. And this is why I'm so excited for the women who are going to be on the retreat, because I didn't realize how much I think I needed the space to breathe. And by stepping away and stepping into something completely different, it really just gave me that time to gain some clarity. And okay, I didn't act on it for what was another 7 or 8 months, but it really was incredible not having to answer emails, not having to check your phone, and just having the space to really awaken, I think, and connect to myself was really important. And I had this real clarity of what I truly wanted in my life, but in the sense of it wasn't, there was more for me to do, and what I was doing wasn't potentially it. And so that's why I've created the Finding Freedom Retreat, because I know what happens when women give themselves the space to pause, reflect, and expand. When you step into a space where it isn't a getaway, but it's more of a homecoming to yourself, you can really then give yourself that space to work out what it is you need truly, or what it is you really desire and want. And any desire that comes to you is already there, it's already yours. So you're going to spend 7 nights in Bali. In I think it's a really powerful place, and it's energetically very just magical. And we'll be doing morning yoga in the shala, surrounded by nature. We're going to be doing coaching, and there'll be mindset shifts that are going to help you transform the way you see yourself. There'll be healing ceremonies, sound baths, Balinese rituals that will clear out whatever's been holding you back. And then we've got a number of excursions that aren't just amazing excursions, but designed to awaken something within you. And this kind of experience, it really will rewire you from a soul level, from a deep internal place. And imagine waking up to the sound of nature, feeling fully rested and at peace. No rushing, no checking the email, no obligations, no shoulds, just you, fully present with yourself, breathing again. And we're going to be sipping morning coffees and teas with other like-minded women who are going to see you in your highest potential. We'll go through the healing workshops that will help you bring yourself closer to the version that you have always wanted, that's been waiting for you to emerge. And I believe that as the week unfolds, you'll realize that this isn't just a trip, it's a rebirth. And so I really want you to experience this. And I know how important it is to understand yourself at a deeper level. So, on top of the retreat, I'm also going to give everyone a one-to-one human design session before we get to Bali, so that when we arrive, you're not just stepping into the space, but you are stepping into a new level of alignment. You'll understand why you've felt stuck in certain areas of your life, how to make decisions that feel right to you, the natural strengths that you were born with, and how to actually use them. Human design was a game changer for me, as it gave me permission to stop fighting against myself and start flowing with my natural energy. And I want you to have that same clarity before you even arrive at the retreat. But the retreat is really for the woman who's been waiting for a sign, for the woman who's been craving something more, for the woman who knows deep down that she's meant for bigger things, but needs the space to fully step into them. So I'm really excited for the women that are joining. And I can't wait to see you, to give you the biggest hug, and to just see the transformation that happens over the 7 nights. So it's the Finding Freedom Retreat in Bali. A lot of people say, when I ask them, what does thriving alcohol-free mean to you? And you will have heard it on the podcast. A lot of people say freedom. And so finding freedom is really important. And it's something that I believe everyone deserves, everyone should have. The time freedom, the freedom to just be able to do whatever they want, the financial freedom, all the freedoms. So it's 7 nights of transformation, healing, and self-discovery in a luxury retreat that's designed to help you reset, reconnect, and rise. And I believe the breakthrough moments are waiting for you there. So join me, join me on this journey. And I've created this container really to just enable you to step into your next chapter, so that you can create your dreamiest life and start living that. And so if you're interested, I'd love to have a chat with you. You can book a call. You can find out more information. I will put the information in the show notes or head to at Thrive Alcohol Free on Instagram, DM me, and we can have a conversation about it. But I'd love you to secure your spot. This is your time. You're worthy of this. I think that's another thing. A lot of people think that they can't do something like this because they don't deserve it, they're not worthy, they have to prioritize other things. But actually, there's never a perfect time, and you'll never get the right permission. You have to give yourself permission. And I think this is it. So if you're listening to this, if this is stirring anything inside with you, then I encourage you to book a call and let's have a chat. Okay, so today's guest is Silvia Subirana, and she is a clinical psychologist, and she is the head of content development at MyDry30. And MyDry30 is an app that's designed to help the user take control of their relationship with alcohol, but it's so much more than that. It helps people discover greater meaning, happiness, and fulfillment in their lives so that they can become the healthier version of themselves. And so we talk about the app, we talk about her journey to becoming alcohol free, and we also talk about culture and travel and how it differs in different countries. And so without further ado, here is the conversation with Silvia. So welcome, Silvia, to the Thrive Alcohol Free podcast. How are you?
Yeah, good. Thanks. Thank you for having me. How are you?
I'm really, really well. I'm looking forward to this conversation. And so, maybe for people that might not know you, why don't we start with maybe telling us a bit about you and who you are and what brings you to the podcast?
So, I'm a clinical psychologist and I work for this app called MyDry30 that helps people build a better relationship with alcohol. And that really motivates me because I've been alcohol free for between 5 and 6 years. I don't have a specific date because it was organic in my case. And well, I really love helping people understand that there's way more in life than drinking alcohol. They can have a lot of fun anyway. They can, well, be in many, many different events where alcohol is a big part of it without drinking and still enjoy it a lot. So yeah, that's pretty much my purpose and how I try to help people.
Oh, amazing. And we'll get into the app in a bit, but I'd love to hear
Mm-hmm.
you mentioned that it was an organic thing, the way you became
Mm-hmm.
alcohol free. So I'd love to hear a little bit about what led you to potentially even start thinking about it. And maybe if you could describe
Mm-hmm.
your organic approach, that would be quite
Yeah.
interesting to the listener.
Mm. So basically, alcohol has never sat well in my stomach. When I started drinking, I suppose like a lot of people do when you're a teenager, and that's what all your friends do. You start drinking. At first, I drank and I was fine, but then the next day, I would feel awful mentally, emotionally. I was very anxious, very sad. And apparently, I didn't know that it was because of it. I just didn't understand why, right? And later, when I grew up a little bit, I started uni. And obviously, there's a lot of going out involved in that. And yeah, I just continued feeling like that. But I only drunk in events or big things. I didn't really like having a drink or two because I didn't feel well doing that. And then eventually, when I was finishing my bachelor's degree, I developed a big gut infection, bacterial infection. So of course I had to quit alcohol. That was the first thing that the doctor said, okay, it's out of the window. So yeah, I stopped drinking then and I focused on recovering, and I understood that this gut infection was linked to obviously pressure, anxiety, stress that I've been having during those years and not really dealing with that. So I tried to solve that as well. And once I felt like I was healthy, I integrated all the food again. I can eat anything. But when I went back to drinking alcohol, it felt even worse than it did before. So that's why I said that it was organic, because I don't have a set date that I remember. Okay, this was my last drink. I just stopped because I didn't feel well doing it. But it took me a while to accept that I would never drink again. Or I'm never say never, because of course maybe I don't know, tomorrow I'll be in the mood to have a mojito and I have a mojito. But yeah, I just decided to not drink anymore because it was making me feel quite well. Apart from making me feel sick, it also made me feel bad personally because I didn't feel that that was something that I was supposed to do, because it wasn't what my body was asking to do, basically.
Hmm. Yeah, and I think that's really important because a lot of people keep going because they think, well, that's what everyone else is doing. And as you said, you're only drinking at big events or at things when you were out, but so many people feel that they still need to do that. So what would you
Mm-hmm.
say to the person who might be thinking, I'd love to do that, but I feel a bit of pressure from society, from my friends, etc.
Mm-hmm.
How did that work for you?
Yeah, it can be a bit scary because obviously everyone around you is doing something, and the last thing you want to do is feel like you're the weird one or the different one, right? So you want to fit in, especially with people that maybe you don't know as much, because maybe if you have a very close friend, then you are more open to be yourself and do what you want to do. But then in a group of people, we want to fit in, we want to well, we feel that pressure as well. So I understand that it can be a bit tricky. And the way that I started doing it to try to avoid conversations that I didn't want to have was I would ask for like a mocktail or like a drink that looked fancy. Like,
Mm,
I don't know, like a lemonade, but I would ask the bartender, please, can you make it fancy? And the bartenders made it look a bit fancier with sometimes a little umbrella or like different things, making it look
mm,
like some sort of cocktail. And people don't ask. If you have a drink in your hand and it looks sort of like alcohol, people don't ask. So for me, that was the way to do it, because that's what made me gain confidence to then say, okay, no, I am actually not drinking. This is not alcoholic, right?
mm,
And well, that made me feel more empowered to have those conversations, because at first it was just like, I just don't want to talk about it, right? And it's actually what a lot of people tell me. How do you deal with those conversations? Because
mm,
we think that is the most scary thing to be pointed at as, why are you the only one not drinking, right? But to my surprise, people get over that very, very easily. I was expecting it to be such a big deal, but yeah, people ask and then you respond, yeah, I just don't feel well drinking alcohol, or I'm not in the mood, or you just give a short explanation and people move on. The conversation lasts 1 minute. And then when I started having those conversations, I was like, I was worrying for nothing, because these conversations are 1 minute long. And when people ask me that they fear these conversations, I always tell them that you don't understand how short these conversations are going to be. And if they are a bit longer, mostly it's because people are curious and want to know more about how you've been doing or why, or how you approach it generally, right? So I've obviously, in 5 or 6 years that I have not drank alcohol, I've had a lot of these conversations and I've never had a negative one.
mm,
So that's been very surprising and very, well, very calming as well, because then I can encourage people and say, it's like quite unlikely that you're going to face uncomfortable conversations. Most of the times they're just 1 minute long.
mm. Yeah, well said. And I think a lot of people stop or hesitate from taking that break because of that. And in the grand scheme of it, if you're thinking, well, it's a minute every now and again, it's not really worth not doing if that's something you think is
Mm-hmm.
going to help your body in some way. And then I also love the fact that you listen to your body. Again, it's something people don't tend to do, or they'll push it to the back of their mind or think actually alcohol's not the issue, it must be something else. So obviously with the gut problem that you had, the doctor said you need to stop drinking, but after that, what do you think was it? Do you think it was just because you felt so bad, or how did you learn to listen to your body and actually know that maybe alcohol wasn't the thing?
Well, I got to that point in my gut infection that was quite bad because I was
Mm,
not listening to my body. I was not dealing with that stress. I was not understanding the symptoms that were coming, right?
mm,
Because at first I was just a little bit bloated, right? After feeling stressed for a long time, I was just a little bit bloated. And then I started having a little bit of acne, which I never really had. And these symptoms started popping. And at first I was just like being a bit dismissive of them, like, yeah, well, whatever, it's because of stress, I'm gonna get over that. But then at one point it got so bad that I was like, okay, it's really affected my life, I need to put an end to this. And now looking back, it was a very long time that I just dismissed those symptoms, right?
mm,
So that was a big realization moment for me. It was like, if I had approached that, if I had given space to those symptoms when they were little, it would have been so much easier to get better. And I would have never had to live as uncomfortably as I was living at one point. So even though it's a bit, uh, well, inconvenient sometimes to listen to our bodies because we are in such busy lives that we don't want to put too much importance to what happens to us. I learned the hard way that we have to stop. We have to understand what's going on in our bodies because things are not going to go away. Those symptoms are not going to go away. They're only going to get bigger and bigger until we acknowledge them and take care of what's happening with us. So for me, that was, well, a big thing to learn. And that's why I always
mm,
try to tell people, listen to your body, understand what's going on, and self-knowledge is power. Understanding your limits is power, because what works for you might not work for me. So understanding your limits and how your body reacts to certain things, well, will give you the tools and the ability to react and adapt way better.
mm. Yeah, I absolutely agree. And our brain's actually sending things to our body. So there's a whole
Mm-hmm.
mind-body connection, and you know deep down exactly what's going on because the brain, if there's something wrong, the brain will send it to the body so that you actually pick up on it. So our bodies are amazing. But I think that really comes down to the whole holistic well-being and really taking on everything. And you
Mm-hmm.
have been part of, well, why don't you tell your story in terms of what happened after you stopped drinking and then where are you now?
Obviously, I stopped drinking because of all the health implications that I had after the gut issues and all that. And that's one thing that I lived that made me realize what you just said. The mind and the
Mm,
body are a whole. They're not separate. They're always connected. And looking at one thing, acknowledging one thing, but not just ignoring the other one is wrong. It's not going to give you all the information that you need to know, right?
mm,
And even it doesn't have to be a massive infection like I had. It can be the tiniest thing. When you get shocked or when you are feeling stressed, your body is tense. So that mind body connection is always, always there. So having a holistic approach for me is key. For me, understanding how the body and the mind are related and how you can work both ways. You can not only work through the mind, but you can also work through the body, doing movements and different things is very, very powerful, because that's why in the app we also integrate movement to try to implicate the body a little bit. Many research has shown that the hips, for example, store a lot of tension, a lot of trauma sometimes. So just by doing a little bit of stretching, 5 minutes of stretching, 5 minutes a day can really, really change the way that your body sits for the rest of the day. Well, all those benefits will obviously later on reflect on your mind. So that is very, very interesting for me, how there are so many tools out there that we haven't seen or haven't put attention on in the past years because we saw everything as independent, right? And putting it all together for me is key now.
mm. So how do you do that?
Yeah, so the program on the app is 30 days of not drinking. And then on those 30 days, you have 30 minutes a day where you have hypnotherapy for 15 minutes. Then you have 5 minutes of reading, 5 minutes of journaling, and 5 minutes of movement. Why do we do that? Because again, we want to create that mind body connection, but also we want to create another connection, which is conscious and unconscious mind. And the conscious obviously relies on journaling and reading because you are aware of what you're doing. And then the unconscious is on the hypnotherapy. And when I talk about hypnotherapy, some people get scared because hypnosis has quite a bad name because of many movies and shows, right? And everybody thinks, oh, are you going to just swing a pendant in my face and click your fingers and then say, I'd like a chicken? And that's not how it works at all. Basically, what hypnotherapy does is it brings you to a deep state of relaxation where you are still aware, still conscious and aware of everything that's happening around you. You're just way more relaxed. And all that conscious noise, all those worries that you normally have, all those thoughts just lose intensity. So when you are in that deep state of relaxation, you are more in touch with yourself, you are more in touch with your body, and you are more open to suggestions. And how hypnotherapy works is it creates different neuropaths, different paths between brain cells, right? So habits can be created in an easier way because sometimes creating habits consciously is very, very difficult. We have to put a lot of willpower. So by involving the unconscious mind, habits can be created way faster. And the way that it does it is hypnotherapy, well, you have the suggestions of making better choices for yourself. And little by little, that path, that alternative path from the ones that the brain normally uses, is created. So your body, little by little, will start following that path that is something that aligns more with your values, right? So the brain can easily adapt to different things. Our brains are so powerful and so capable of change, not only when we're kids, but also in any moment of our lives. Like even when if we're 90 years old, the brain still has power to change. So by combining these two tools, focus on the unconscious mind and the conscious mind, the way that habits are created and changed is, well, way easier. And what we see is that people stick to those changes and it is way more successful, really.
Hmm. Yeah. And it always makes me laugh because I do subliminals and things like that, which are all related to hypnotherapy. But you're right, a lot of people
Mm-hmm.
think that you're going to end up. Yeah, I love what you said about dancing around with a chicken because we all remember when we were growing up those shows where they do hypnosis,
Yeah.
close your eyes, and it just isn't the case. It is just tapping into your subconscious mind and helping
Mm-hmm.
you to change. So I really like that approach of the hypnosis, the journaling, the reading, and then the movement as well. I think they're all key things that you need as part of an alcohol-free toolkit. And so with the journaling, is that journal prompts that you give them each day to journal, or is it just free form journaling?
We have the two options. We obviously have the freestyle. So if you want
Hmm.
to write about something, you can. But then we also offer 3 questions a day, and people
Hmm.
can respond either one, two, or three, right? And they can skip them if they're not in the mood to respond to a certain thing because we ask questions about many, many different aspects in life, and some people don't want to get a bit more deep into a specific
Hmm.
topic, or they think that it's not the time. And again, we're not forcing anybody. It's just a tool for people to gain self knowledge and understand that they have way more tools than they think. And it's just a different approach, but we're not going to force anybody. And also, we're never going to demonize alcohol. We're never going to make people feel guilty if at one point during those 30 days they drink. That's completely fine. Sometimes it's hard to stop drinking for 30 days. And the most important thing is what you learn from it, what you get from those 30 days, right? If you drink one day or two during those 30 days, that's fine. If you have gained knowledge and you are ready to implement different tools that you have learned.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So you join the app, you do these for 30 days. So what happens next?
You have two options. You can choose to moderate or you can choose to quit completely. We're working on developing those two paths to continue for another 30 days, but at the moment it's only the first 30 days. And what we've seen and has really surprised me is that there's more people that choose moderation rather than people that choose quitting completely.
Mm.
But when I started researching a bit more about the reason why, it's because I saw that there's many, many programs out there that help you quit completely. But there's not many programs out there that help you understand when you want to drink and they give you the tools to then make a choice for yourself. Right.
Mm.
So I suppose that's what makes us unique, and that's why more people are doing our program to then be able to choose when they want to drink instead of doing it out of pressure or out of habit.
Mm. So you think when they do the app, people can moderate more easily?
It really depends on the person because moderation can be very tricky. And I've had many people tell me, I thought I could moderate, I implemented different tools, but then eventually, by listening to myself, because obviously it is a 30-day program, but as I said before, life changes all the time. So maybe you can moderate now, but maybe something happens in 6 months and you are not able to moderate anymore because you either drink too much or you don't drink at all. So moderation really needs to be revised periodically, I would say. And then some people, as I said, are not able to moderate, and that's completely fine. The key is to understand who is able to moderate and who's not, or what works for you and what doesn't work for you. For example, for me, drinking doesn't work at all. So I understand that moderation is not an option for me. But then I have helped people that are able to moderate and they have changed their habits and now they have way less alcohol than they had before. So it really depends on the person, I would say.
Mm. Yeah, I think moderation takes up a lot more mental capacity than we give it credit for. And it's
Definitely.
quite a challenge. And I do tend to see that people who start off by saying they're going to moderate end up realizing that that's just not really going to work for them. And actually, when people say they only have one drink a month or one drink every now and again, well, you wonder what's the reason. But each to their own, everyone has a choice.
Mm.
And I like the idea that with the app, it gives you the ability to then go on and do what you want to do and that you're not pushing it either way. So that's
Mhm.
definitely a differentiator. And then I think you also have breathing exercises as well in the app, do you?
Hmm. Yeah, so what I said before, those four things is the main program, but then there's many other tools in there that can be used, well, as a complement, or some people after those 30 days, they like doing the rest of exercises. There's breathing techniques and meditation programs, 15 or 10-minute videos that anybody can do at home. There's different exercises as well to deal with strong emotions, to deal with anger, like many, many different things as well. And we also have something called connection days, which is one of my favorite things. And they are, well, it's basically 5 days out of those 30 days that people get a banner that it asks for something that can be done in 2 minutes. For example, the first one is gratitude, right? To be grateful. And you get a banner that says, hey, why don't you send a message to someone that you appreciate in your life that has to do something that you're grateful for, and maybe you haven't thanked them enough. So people get their phones, send that message, and that message really, really changes their mood for the whole day because you send that message and then by the time that person sees that message you're making the other person's day, and then the response will also make your day because you made another person that you love happy. So we focus on that power of connection as well, because I feel like nowadays everybody's very isolated, we're very lonely, we live very independently, and we don't realize that connecting with the people that we love and feeling that connection, that love frequently has an amazing effect in ourselves. It makes us feel way more content and way more fulfilled in life.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, I like that. I think that's really nice. And gratitude, again, is something that I talk about, and it's really important to have in our 21-day
Mhm.
challenge. We always have a daily gratitude. What are the three things you're grateful for? So I absolutely agree. It's a great thing to do. And I do encourage people when they journal at the end of the night to write down 3 to 5 things that they're grateful for before they go to sleep,
Mhm.
because as you say, it gives you a different perspective as well, doesn't it? So it helps you
Mhm.
to stay in that peaceful, happy mood, which is great. And there's always something you can be grateful for. Again, I think a lot of
Definitely.
people think it has to be big things that they're grateful for, but it's just those everyday things. The fact that you woke up, the fact that the sun is shining, the fact that you saw a butterfly, maybe they're all things you could be grateful for. But just taking that pause to acknowledge it and actually think, well, what am I grateful for today? It really changes people's perception. And if you do that often enough, that also helps change the subconscious mind. So I think that's, yeah, great.
I always say that life is not objective. Life is how we see it, know how it is.
Ah,
And it's not something that is there's I don't know, there's an act and then you have the correct way to react to that act is a certain way. There's 1,000 different ways to react to one thing happening, and there's many different approaches. Again, you need to feel all the emotions in the spectrum. You need to feel pleasant emotions and pleasant emotions, but by shifting your perspective and focusing more on the little things. A stranger smiled at me in the supermarket, like
mm,
tiny little things, daily things. We then understand that life is more than our problems and that what happens. Because, yeah, sometimes life gets very hard, don't get me wrong, but there's always good things happening as well that if we're having a bad day, sometimes we don't realize.
mm. Yeah, I talk about our model of reality. And so we all have a model of reality based on how we've grown up, this environment we're in, society, etc. But we're all capable of changing that model of reality. And I love the analogy of a radio. And so in the older radios, which you used to be able to turn the dial and go to the different stations, I could put on the dial on pop music, for example, but that doesn't mean the classical music or hip hop or whatever is playing in the background, that's playing as well. So it's then what do you want to choose? And we can choose our thoughts, we can choose our reality, we can choose what we think. And a lot of the
Mm-hmm.
time, I think we underestimate how much power we have. At any given point, our subconscious has access to millions of bits of information, but our conscious mind can only really cope with about 40 bits of information. And when we're thinking things, we can actually change that. That's what our reticular activating system does. When you suddenly are buying a car and there's a certain model, you'll suddenly see that car everywhere because you've now said to your
Mm-hmm.
subconscious, this is something I'm interested in. So we can absolutely change our model of reality. And that's the joy of our brain, neuroplasticity. We can change it quite quickly. And that's the joy of things like hypnotherapy and other tools, which help you do it probably relatively quicker than other things in terms of changing your habits
Mm-hmm.
and changing the way you think. And so what you're doing is amazing. How did you get involved in it?
To be honest, it was a bit of a coincidence or fate, depending on what people believe in. Was in a bit of a career impasse. I was looking for something new, but something that resonated with me. And I was looking for different programs, and I found that this program was being developed and they needed a clinical psychologist to help develop that program. So yeah, I reached out and they were interested in my profile because of course it really aligns with my values and what I want to help people do. So that's really how I got involved. It was, I don't know, a bit of a coincidence, I would say.
Well, amazing. Yeah, it's amazing how many coincidences, opportunities, whatever you want word you want to use, seem to come, especially when you
Mm-hmm.
stop drinking. I think you have this clarity and you have this real sense of what you want to focus on or what you want to achieve. And as I said, once you start thinking, having that desire to do something, you said you wanted to do something different, you've sparked a thought, and that means that's out there for you to get. So yeah, I fundamentally believe when you stop drinking and you've got that clarity of thought and that focus and awareness, things just start happening that you wonder
Mhm.
how did that happen? Where did that come from? That's really cool. That's exciting. And I
Mhm.
love the fact that you're already thinking about how to sort of create 2.0 of it and keep going with it. And so what would you say has been the biggest impact of not drinking for you in these past 5 to 6 years? Or maybe if you could think about three things that stand out that you think maybe made a difference because you stopped drinking.
Well, one of the things that for me has changed or has been able to give me a lot more is the money that I've saved.
Mm,
Because, well, I've been able to travel more, to save way more money. And I didn't even think of that. When I stopped drinking, I didn't even think of the benefits of actually not spending that money, right?
mm,
In many countries, you can ask for water and it's free, or like even a lemonade or something is way, way cheaper than alcohol. So for me, there was something that was unexpected for me, even though it's very obvious, but I just didn't think about it. And it gave me a lot of opportunities that I don't think I would have had them because a lot of the money that I needed for those opportunities would have been spent on alcohol. So yeah, that was a big thing for me. Another big thing for me is that I discovered a part of myself that I didn't know existed because when I stopped drinking and I started approaching all those events and situations, social situations where everybody was drinking and I wasn't, as I said before, I needed to discover what was my belief in everything, how I wanted to live my life, how I wanted to approach those situations and what I wanted to get out of that night, that day, or whatever. So by doing that, I learned a lot of information about myself. I learned how I like doing things, and I also learned a lot about my boundaries and what doesn't work for me. So that gave me tools to then understand, okay, I'm in a situation that I'm not comfortable in. I think I need to leave. Whereas I remember times when I used to drink and I was in situations that didn't make me feel comfortable, but I just didn't think and I just stayed there because people around me were staying there. So I think it's really helped me be more in touch with myself and my values and what I want to do. And obviously the clarity and the ability to just wake up after a wedding or a social gathering and feeling completely fine and being able to do anything you want to do the next day because you are not recovering from the night before. That is a gift. So, yeah, these are my three things.
yeah, it is amazing. Saving money and just feeling amazing are both really good things to have, aren't they? And you've also traveled, haven't you? You've moved. So was that something
Mhm.
that you think has happened because of not drinking, or was that just coincidental?
Well, I think I've always loved traveling. And after COVID, I felt very trapped at my house. I was still living with my parents. And I was like, I want to see the world. I want to get out there. I love my country, my culture. Don't get me wrong. I'm from Spain. And I think we have a very lively culture. And I think that leaving and exploring the world has made me realize that I love my culture even more now.
Mm.
So yeah, I've always wanted to travel and to do more things. And I think that I needed to get healthy in order to be able to travel as much as I have. And one of the key things for me was to obviously not drink alcohol because alcohol was not making me feel healthy. So I never linked it, but I think it was part of the reason why I moved to the other side of the world and I started discovering this part of it.
Yeah. And so let's talk a bit about culture because I lived in Spain for a year and we traveled a lot to Spain for a long time. Every year we were there. We love it. But there is very much a red wine culture with dinner in
Yeah.
Spain and other things, of course, but that's what really sticks in my mind, that glass of red wine with your dinner and eating quite late as well. I remember everyone eats quite late compared to people in the UK. And then in Australia, again, there is quite a heavy drinking culture as well. So, would you say you've seen a difference as you've lived in both places? And what's the alcohol-free culture like in both? I know in Australia there are quite a few alcohol-free coaches and influencers who and you can get alcohol-free drinks and things. I'm not sure actually whether Spain has a similar thing. Love to hear your perspective.
It's very interesting to see the differences in each country, not only with these two, but many others like the US
Mm.
or many other different places that you go to. You see how their upbringing really changes the way that they drink. And I do think that in Australia, there's more the culture of binge drinking. And
Yeah.
in Spain, there's less binge drinking. Well, you
Mm.
see it less, but then again, you see wine or beers way more often.
Mm.
They are way more accepted, and pretty much from 12 p.m. you can drink pretty much any time of the day and it's
Yeah.
acceptable, right? So
Yeah.
they're two very different approaches, but that doesn't mean that one is better than the other. It just means that people really act differently. And I think the sober, curious movement is happening all over the world. I see it here in Australia because, in general, there's a big problem of alcohol consumption here in Australia, and they are limiting it a lot. And you cannot get into a bar or a pub, not even to have dinner, if you look a bit drunk. So they are very, very, very strict here. Whereas in Spain, I don't think that there's that. Or obviously, if you are passed out, you're not gonna get anywhere, not even in a
Mm.
restaurant. But I think in Spain they are embracing more the mocktail tradition or the alcohol-free beer, because I have more and more friends that decide to reduce their drinking intake, both from Spain or Australia, right? I just think it's a global movement, and I'm very happy that it's happening because it has, well, it has a lot of good outcomes. It's the same as
Mm.
when people decided to stop smoking as much. There's a lot of people that still smoke, but it's way less normalized than it was 40 or 30 years ago.
Yeah.
And I have the feeling that we're getting into the same direction with alcohol, and that makes me happy because it really brings a lot of different options, substance free, on the table. And yeah, I think people will be more in touch with themselves, and that is beautiful.
Yeah, yeah, amazing. And it's always interesting. So I'm in Marrakesh at the moment, and obviously it's a Muslim country, and so there are lots of amazing mocktails. They do mocktails really, really well here.
Mm-hmm.
But then when you see the tourists who are from the UK or from other parts of the world, they're sort of clamoring to find where they can find somewhere to have a drink because not everywhere serves alcohol. So it's always interesting because you'll go to a restaurant that does serve alcohol and you can hear people say, "Oh, great, I can get a drink here." And so it's
Yeah.
quite funny. And I keep saying that I stopped drinking 4.5 years ago, and if I was here 5, 6 years ago, I would have been one of those people, and I probably wouldn't have enjoyed it as much because I would have been
Mm-hmm.
looking for where can I get a drink, where can I get a drink, and so now I'm just loving the mocktails. I'm loving the fact that the culture is quite calm and chilled as well, and I wonder if there is a
Mm-hmm.
correlation between no alcohol and just the general culture. So it is fascinating when you look at these different countries and how people have been brought up. And I was going to joke with Spain, all the binge drinkers are probably from the UK. As we all visit the UK from the UK, and we're very well known for that. And one thing I want to highlight actually, when you talk about binge drinking, it was fascinating to me to learn that binge drinking is actually only two medium-sized glasses of wine. So that's what it's classified as. But we think
Yeah.
binge drinking is a Saturday night where you literally go all out and you're passed out on the floor. But most people binge drink every night, every other night, and they don't appreciate that that's what it officially is. So I thought I'd highlight that because the perception of binge drinking is the reality of it, and
Mm-hmm.
actually so much potential damage to your body could happen just from having those two glasses of
Yeah.
wine often. So this has been a fascinating conversation. Thank you so much for being on, Sylvia. Is there anything else that you wanted to mention?
Well, no, not really. I think we've covered a lot. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, great. Well, I always end the podcast with my favorite question. What does thriving alcohol-free mean to you?
I think for me, it means freedom. It means me being able to decide more. aligned to what I want to do and how I want to live my life, I suppose. And when you were explaining the story of like when people look for alcohol in Marrakesh, it made me realize, obviously, I haven't been in that situation for 5, 6 years, and that makes me way more free because I can decide to do. I suppose you will have the same feeling. You can decide to do and spend your time how you want to do it instead of relying on that external substance in this case.
Yeah.
And it makes me feel so happy that I'm not looking for that because I already have it in me what I want to
Yeah.
do, right? So
Mm.
yeah.
Well, that's an amazing answer. Yeah, I love it. Freedom, absolutely. Well,
Mm-hmm.
thank you ever so much for being on. And how can people get in touch with you?
So they can get in touch through the website. It's MyDry30.com. I'll send you all the links so you can add them
Mhm.
into the description. There's a contact form and there's all the explanation of the program there. So if anybody has any questions, there's frequently asked questions there. And if not, they can send a message through Instagram as well, and we'll be happy to help. It's MyDry30 app. And yeah, they can find our app in App Store, Google Play, MyDry30, My Dry Journey, and my Google Play's My Dry Journey. And that's basically it. I'll be happy to help anybody that has any questions.
Great. Well, it's been a pleasure and best of luck with it. And I look forward to seeing how the app grows. So thank you very much for being on.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed it.
Take care. Well, thank you, Sylvia. I really enjoyed that conversation, and I'm sure the app is going to help a lot of people. And I love the fact that it incorporates so many different things in those 30 days for people to do. I loved her answer about how thriving alcohol free means freedom to her. And ultimate freedom is just such a gift. And so, if you are looking to find freedom, again, I encourage you to reach out at Thrive Alcohol Free on Instagram, book a call, or just learn more information and secure your spot in the link below. And I'd love to have a chat with you. I truly believe everyone deserves true freedom, whatever that means to them. And you are one of those people. So if this stirs you in any way, feel free to book a call and I look forward to speaking to you. Okay, have the best week and I will see you on the next one. Take care. Thank you so much for listening to the Thrive Alcohol Free podcast. If you enjoyed the episode, please subscribe so you get alerted every time I drop a new episode. I'd love it if you could rate, review, and share this episode. Feel free to tag me on Instagram at Thrive Alcohol Free and follow me for daily tips. If you would like to work with me, I offer one-to-one coaching sessions and have my group coaching program. If you're not yet ready for coaching, I also have a self-paced online course, which is a companion to my book, A Cocktail of Clarity. All the links are in the show notes. I will see you in the next episode. Have a wonderful week. Take care.